It's a wonderful new day. It's a day that will never come again. So alive, how alive does your life allow you to feel at the moment? How alive does your life allow you to feel at the moment? You know, our aliveness and our sense, our zest, our enthusiasm tend to filter away with life's daily challenges and with the worries and the things that needs to get done. So let's begin our session together this morning by giving permission and to just say, I give myself permission to receive my highest good. I give myself permission to be pleasantly surprised when I see how good my life really is. So, what is your fuel for living? What is your fuel for living? Your fuel for living is your feelings. And understanding everything is the real problem, because when you feel something, you want to understand why you're feeling that way. Understanding everything is the problem. Why did I get this? Why is this happening to me? Why do I have to struggle so much? Why do I have to deal with so much stuff? Understanding everything is the real problem. And when you start asking the whys in the way that you do, it slowly delivers you into a state of poor me. I never get to do what I want to do. I never get to live my dreams. I never get to do the things that I see everybody else gets to do. And we're starting to compare, and we're starting to compare things with what is not even relevant. What am I going to do with this? How am I going to deal with this? Now, look at what you are surrounding yourself with. Just in what I've been saying so far, what are you surrounding yourself with? Is it fuel to propel you forward? Or am I ditching my responsibilities? Am I ditching my ability to respond because I'm in denial of my own ability to deal with difficult things? Because life is really difficult. Just think about this. Just hold this for a moment. I am a thought in this world. You as an individual represents a thought in this world, in the whole bigger, much bigger picture of the infinite picture of the cosmos. You are a thought in this world. And you know what happens? I see so many people at the moment in waiting mode, waiting for the deal, waiting for this offer, waiting to be called, waiting. And in the meantime, years speed by. I see in my own life how much people are waiting. And yes, life is hard and it's challenging and it's difficult. And it makes you feel inadequate in so many ways to deal with the daily events. You are out there on your own. And it feels sometimes as if there's nobody there for you, like everything is just on your shoulders. Always be willing to see the truth of your foundation. What is your foundation? What is the place that you begin from? Like running a race. What is the starting blocks that you put your feet into to actually propel yourself and to move when that master says, on your marks, get set, go, and you hear the shot, bang, and everybody jumps to go to the winning, to that beautiful ribbon that represents the winning line, that represents the goalpost. What is your foundation? What is the starting blocks that you slip your feet into every morning when you wake up? The purpose of being a poor me in your life is simply to win energy. When you're feeling sorry for the things that you need to deal with, when you feel sorry for yourself because of all the challenges that come across your path, that's your ego's way to actually win energy for yourself. In the state of poor me, we must firstly consider whether this guilt trip that we're putting other people on, because in a poor me, you're normally putting other people on a guilt trip around you. Oh, what's gone wrong? Oh, what can we do now? Oh, what has happened? That, ness. And many people actually go out of their way to see how much their poor meanness can elicit a response from those people that they represent or that they find themselves with when they are in togetherness. There are many instances where we may feel that someone's let us down. And it happens daily. We get let down by service delivery, we get let down by our office peers, we get let down by colleagues, we get let down by family members, because there's an expectation that is given to us by agreements that are made, and these agreements are not kept. I've recently had a run-in with a service provider that has not kept any of his agreements with me. And that he's actually accusing me of being the one that's wrong, that's in the... I said to him, but I've done nothing. All I've done is I've paid you for a service. And then very quickly I can go into a poor me. No, now I must take action, because there are many instances that we may feel that someone's let us down. There are instances where you feel that you've let someone down, that you didn't, that you feel sympathy for someone in a difficult situation. Most importantly, remember and be aware that these realities must be determined by you, not by someone else. Your value system, your way of evaluating the way that life is happening for you, the way that you experience in your life, that is determined by your own standards and values. Only you have the power to decide, to admit one, to accept, to own to what extent you can be present. Because you can be present, but you can be unavailable, you can be unwilling, and you can feel like you have no capacity. Presence doesn't automatically give you the willingness and availability and the capacity. Presence, you can be very present, but none of those things can be in place. And then you feel inadequate. You feel as if you can't do something. You feel as if you don't have the energy. You feel as if you don't have the power. But never can someone make you believe that you don't care when you say no. Because you also need to say no to yourself often. Because you need to remember the foundation. What is my foundation? What is the starting blocks that I'm putting my feet in to run this particular race? And let me tell you, we run many races every day. Different races for different reasons. But they're all races, and we're all in a situation we are competing with others to get to that finish line, to get to that place. Who's going to touch the ribbon with their chest first? That's the whole purpose. That's the whole of life is a race. So never can anyone make you believe that you don't care when you say no. Because remember now, in the times that we're living in, that scamming is the #1 income generator on our planet. At this moment as we're speaking, millions and maybe even billions of people are being scammed out of their money. Because scamming is now the #1 income generator on our planet. And you don't just get scammed with money. You get scammed with your consciousness. You get scammed with your energy. There's so much available on the internet to go and listen to go and sit with, to meditate with, and these very often does not have your best interest at heart. I spoke to someone this past week that was telling me that there are now people that are running businesses to actually get you followers on the social media platforms. So you can pay this person, and then it's an amount per month, or it's a once-off amount, and then they will go and they will find followers for you to increase the number of people that are following you. on your social platforms, because that's all that people are looking for. That's what makes them somebody, is how many people are following them. And I'm very blessed that I have maybe 5 or 6 or 10 people that come and listen to me, because then I know these people are serious about living a good life, living a life of integrity, of valuing themselves. It's not about showmanship. It's not about impressing. It's not about, look who I'm rubbing shoulders with. That's the scamming that's going on. You are being scammed out of your own consciousness. Please be aware. Secretly conning, manipulating, and it's always in the end about money. I listened to one of my great teachers yesterday, and I've always, I won't mention any names because I was very disappointed in what I saw. And, you know, this person has also gone the route of impressing and selling, and the whole session that I listened to was simply just a marketing and a session to actually get people to sell themselves, to actually buy into something. So the desperation that people feel around money these days turns them into beasts. Cold, ruthless, malicious abusers of kindness and of caring giving. And the real value of life is long, long forgotten. It's way beyond what you like. It's even further beyond what you feel makes you happy. You know, I'm not happy about this. Let's forget about the pursuit of influencing, to be first. I said it first, I saw it first, I shared it first. You know, in China, when the big masters get together and they paint together and they create together and they do wonderful things together, they don't actually care whose name goes on the finished product, who signs it, who gets the credit. What is important for them is to deliver the creativity for the next generation. How much do you currently blame life conditions for your own oversights, for not doing, for not accepting? Hmm? Care to go outside of yourself. Care to go and become aware of what you are allowing yourself to be part of. When our priorities are absent and we no longer honor our own agreements, we feel inadequate. We feel as if we're not making it. It's easy to become a poor me in today's world, to be taken advantage of because of the greed that prevails. And I no longer bother to actually have a sense of sympathy, or I'm feeling, you know, that person can do with support. No. If we're not going to be considerate of the consequences, then we'll sink deeper and deeper into a hole that we're digging for ourselves. And the only way that you can keep yourself out of these ruts, out of these holes that we fall into, out of the basements that we keep descending into, is through awareness. And some holes you never get out of again. Some people drop you into a hole that is so deep that you can't find yourself out of that hole again, because the sides are just simply too steep. And you know how that happens. It's the way you allow your mind to function. It's the way that you allow your mind to function because you had an association, you had an interaction with this person. And then, of course, there's your free will and your permission. We call it I give permission, but what we're actually doing is we're invoking our free will. So when you fall into a rut, when you fall into a place where you feel challenged, where you feel stuck, where you feel, overwhelmed by all the things that are happening in your life, remember that you have the ability to release things. You have the ability to give permission. By your permission, wonderful things can happen. Wonderful things. But you are compelled to worry. You are compelled because worry offers no reprieve. The only thing that offers us reprieve is action. Action gets us out of the rut. Action gets us out of the hole. What can you do about it? And then, of course, before you continue to do about it, you need to ask yourself the question, is this worth it? Do I even want to run this race? Do I even want to put my feet into the starting block? Do I even want to raise my hand and say, I want to be part of this race? Some races you don't want to run. You don't want to be part of that race. It's not what your life is about. And then, of course, as I said earlier, waiting is not an option. Waiting is not an option. You do something to keep you feeling effective towards your delivery, towards your result. And you can keep feeling effective by taking one step. You don't have to run the whole race. You can take one step towards the finish line. Not everybody's meant to win the race. And you know what you sometimes do is you run such a phenomenal race and you're almost at the finish line, and then you'll turn around and you'll go and find the person who's lost and you'll hold their hand and you'll run with them. And then you're very disappointed when you get to the finish line and realize that you've given up your own race. And when you get to this with this person to the finish line, they don't even show you any appreciation. They don't show any consideration. They don't show any thankfulness for the fact that you've held their hand. And very often they'll be upset with you that you've held their hand, that you've allowed them to complete their race, because it's not something that they wanted to do to start with. But look how much you have actually sacrificed yourself in order to allow them to have the experiencing of finishing the race. You can't always sacrifice yourself when you've got to run. Waiting is not going to do it. Waiting for someone to catch up is not going to do it. You cannot wait in life waiting for someone to catch up with you. That is a very big mistake, because the more you wait for others to catch up with you, the more you are falling behind in your own race of life. Because every one of us has a race to run. That's how it works here. It's the tracks have been laid, but you've got to run that race. The track is there before you even born, but you've got to run that race. And sometimes in order to run a good race, you've got to prepare. You've got to make sure you've got good starting blocks. You've got to make sure that you want to be part of this race, because there are many races. Do I want to run this race? And I have a dear friend who recently ran the Two Oceans Marathon in Cape Town. And someone pushed her from behind and she fell. Someone pushed her, viciously pushed her, so that she fell to the ground. And she hurt both her wrists so badly that she's had to have several operations already, because she broke some of the finer bones. I don't know the details. But the lesson in that was for me that sometimes when you run a race, there's so many people in that race. There are thousands that wants to run the race. And they don't actually even give the person in front of them the opportunity to run the race too. They want to hurt them and they want to maliciously get them out of the way. What can you do about it? Waiting is not an option. How are you running your race of life? How are you associating yourself with other competitors in this race? Are you elbowing them out of the way? Are you pushing them so that they fall and hurt themselves? How do you conduct yourself? Even with your family, when there's a race to run. Every morning, getting your family ready for the day, having to get the kids to school, having to go to gym, having to do the things that needs to be done. It's a race. You've got to start, you've got to put yourself in the starting blocks, you've got to wait for, on your mask, get set, go, and there you go. And you can teach your family to actually make it a game. On your mask, get set, go, let's go, quickly have breakfast, and on your marks, they say go, and you can even get a little CapCut. Ding! The more you make things into a game, the more people enjoy and participate. And really, it works. It delivers wonderful things. So do something to keep yourself feeling effective towards your delivery, towards the result. Because when you get to the result, that's when you feel fantastic. Don't tell yourself it takes too long. You know, this is going to take too long. This morning, before I started, cheers, by the way, what a lovely cup of tea. So this morning, before I started, I thought, let me start my lunch, because I want to have, today, I want to treat myself to a beautiful Sunday lunch with some beautiful leg of lamb and some lovely veggies. And I got a bag full of up-to-date potatoes last night, so I'm going to make some roasties. And I wish I had people to share the lunch with. But I'll have to share it with Pika. So I'm convincing myself that I don't have enough. No, you can't do this. You still have to go and do this. You gotta wash your hair. You gotta. No, I'm convincing myself so often that I don't have enough time not to do things. And really, I've challenged myself in the last few weeks. I constantly, when that voice comes, no, you don't have enough time. No, there's enough time. And then I just go, excuse me, it's all gonna get done. Because I'm not going to blame the things that I'm unwilling to do on time anymore. I can be present. If I don't have the willingness, if I'm not available, I will not have the capacity. Because that's another thing. I have been so tired. And with the heat wave that we've been having in South Africa, it is been incredibly hot. I mean, we're running at temperatures in the high 30s all the time. And I think yesterday was the first day, or today is the first day that we're sitting at below 30. I think it's 28 to 29. But we've had in the higher 30s for most of our summer with very little rain, huge thunderstorms. So, it's there's no energy. The heat is so draining. So anyway, it's very easy to give myself the excuse that I don't have enough time, because then I can also, just let myself off the hook because I don't feel like it. So you see the button. The button is always the fear of loss. The button is always the fear of loss. What am I going to lose out on? So we've given it a nice name. We call it FOMO, fear of missing out. But it's really the fear of loss. And in the fear of loss, what am I going to lose out on? What am I going to lose here? What is going to be taken away from me? That's been one of my biggest life lessons. And Yoda says, give yourself permission to let go of what you most fear to lose. Now, I'm a hoarder, so you can imagine how difficult a statement that is for me, because the fear of loss always makes us feel unwanted somehow. You know that when there's a fear of loss, it feels like, I am unwanted. I am a struggling victim. I am a poor me. I want to give up. And then the poor me will go and seek out experiences. Your ego will create those life experiences that will actually bring out the poor me, so that you can actually test your environment to see whether you really are unwanted. Are people really giving up on you? Because your fear of loss makes you feel unwanted in situations. You're going to lose out on being loved, because we've got only two human intrinsic needs. That's to belong, and that's to feel like an example. So the fear of loss is always based around those two. And then the very next button will be your vulnerability. Your vulnerability is also based, you have attached and you've created a neural pathway that actually allows the mind by association takes the vulnerability to a place of fear of loss. So when you're vulnerable, you feel compromised, you feel exposed, you feel explored, you feel the victim. Vulnerability is none of those things. Vulnerability is when you realize your humanness, when you realize how much you delude yourself, how much you live with illusions. In my session with my client yesterday, I pointed out so clearly how big the illusion is. Because when we work together, we need to unpack the psyche to actually show the mind, the conscious mind that does the thinking, where the thoughts are happening, to show it how much of an illusion most of the time it's chasing because of its fear of loss. And its fear of loss compares all the time. This one, this one, this and that, and this and that, and this and that. Because the vulnerability is born out of the feeling of weakness, the feeling of being exploited, of being something held against you, of something being held away from you, withholds. All of that becomes a fear of loss, and it makes you feel vulnerable. It makes you feel as if you are being transgressed against. That is not vulnerability. Vulnerability is that deep and sacred space that you achieve when you invest in your consciousness and in your awareness, that becomes a deeply and profoundly, words cannot explain or describe it, a sacred space within you. And that space needs to be protected at all times because it's multi-layered. Your vulnerability is not just one little place or one little thing. It's multi-layered because your vulnerability is your true power. When you know that you can be absolutely vulnerable, that you can be fearless about being vulnerability, true power is a certain sense of fearlessness about your vulnerability. Then you become multi-layered, and that multi-layeredness is an open spiral that are constantly ascending. And that's what we need in the world at the moment. You need to have an attitude of ascension. You need to go and allow yourself constantly to ascend, building a building, next floor, or a staircase, next step. But as you ascend, your vista, what you can see, your perspective, your ability to see the bigger picture, the vista expands. And when the vista expands, you become a multifaceted being, a being that can operate in many different dimensions. Then you are able to be the alchemist, to enter into many different dimensions of consciousness and to do it well. Because if you look at the people find it very difficult to relate to the word dimensionality, but you live in many dimensions. When you're at work, you're in a different dimension. When you're at home, you live a different dimension. The two doesn't even know each other. The two doesn't even overlap. They are so different. They're different worlds, if you like, that you enter into. And that is the way we experience life. But nobody is aware that that's how it works. And we don't actually realize that in each dimension, we are living a different reality. In the one dimension, it can be overwhelming. If you go home, it can be something that you don't even want to talk about because there's so much on your shoulder, there's so much to be done. Different dimension, but each dimension is subject to your starting point, to your starting block. How do you give yourself permission to start when you enter that dimension? Because every dimension will require of you to begin again. Every morning when you wake up, you begin again. This day will never come again. You've never had this day before, you'll never have this day again. Each day represents a full life that is lived in many different dimensions. Dimensions that overlap. Yes, the circles can overlap, the dimensions can overlap, but there are different dimensions and they can never be the same. Your different relationships with different people, your friends, your parents, your mother, your brothers, your sisters, your children. Each is a different dimension. With each individual, you enter into a dimension together that both of your realities create for each other. And that's what you got to live. That's why you're multifaceted. That's why you're multi-layered. But now you've got to look at what role, what is the essence, what is the disposition that you enter into each dimensionality with. Because you've got to realize that you're not your roles. The roles is the thing that you go and do. You know, in one dimension, you may be a mother. In another dimension, you may be a wife. In another dimension, you may be the boss, the manager, the CEO, whatever. In another dimension, you may be the teacher. But it's your essence. It's the essence, the authenticity, that which is at the core of your vulnerability. What is sacred about you that you're afraid that other people will find out? Your vulnerability. It's your essence that allows you to play. And to play on the stage of life, to have these roles. Sometimes the role of being a wife is perhaps not such a nice role. It's not anything like you thought it would be. But now you've got to change the starting blocks. You've got to change the way you run the race. Because perhaps being a mother is nothing like you thought. Perhaps being the manager is nothing like you thought. Perhaps being a friend to this new person that you've met and everything was hunky-dory and moonshine and roses, and now it's not such a nice place anymore. Who knows? It never happens the way you think. But what you need to know is that you are not your roles. You're playing them. And you can change the role. You don't have to always be exactly the same. You can become very creative in the role that you play. Because you need to consider. Consideration is always, always, always required. Consideration, and with your consideration comes generosity. Because you must always be able, in all the roles that you play, you must always be able to ask yourself, how does it feel to play this role? If you look at somebody else, you've got to look at the role that they play. How does it feel for them to play that role? And I know that it's based on an assumption, unless you ask them, but you still need, that's what they mean by an empath. And I don't advocate being an empath, but that's what it means. Just to give yourself a moment of dimensionality. What does it look like in that person's dimension because of the way that they make their choices? Is it worth it? Do I want to include myself there? Do I want to be part of it? My essence allows me to play my roles with excellence because I give my best always. And you can rely on me. I'm dependable. When you need support, I'm there for you. I do things that make you feel good about yourself. That's consideration. Because it's not always possible to like everything that somebody else does. Because we are so different. Our fingerprints show us how different we are. But the closer you are to your essence, the more vulnerable you will feel. Because the closer you go to the source is always the most vulnerable thing because it's always vulnerable. It's tiny. You are the source. Your source is a single egg in your mother's womb. That's where it started. The egg came first, then the sperm. And the egg chose which sperm. There were lots of sperms around the egg. It only accepted one. That's how intricate it is and how much you started as the one that made the choice. And today it still continues like that in nature because it's the woman that makes the choice. A man only chases a woman until she decides to catch him. In nature it's the same. The animals, they have to, the poor males have to do, look in the feathered, fraternity with birds. These poor oaks, they work themselves to a standstill to get a wife, to make a baby. They have to perform, they have to display. I wish I had the facility now to just quickly throw in a little video for you to see all the displays. But I don't have the technical know how to do that, so you'll have to use your imagination. So yeah, we don't do all those fancy things. We actually learn to have our own ability and to make things real for ourselves. Because you see, in this whole process, we so easily engage in arguments, in power games with corrosive energy. Because let me tell you now, the entire social media, the entire internet, especially these platforms, TikTok and what's the other one? I don't even remember the name. Instagrams. It's all power games. It's all who's going to get to the finish line first. It's corrosive energy. But you've got to check what is triggering your defensiveness. What is making you defensive? What? Because an argument is a defense. If you go into an argument with someone, you are defending yourself and you are actually attacking them because now they must see it the way you see it. You see the dimensionality? You're sharing this dimension with them, and now they've got to see it like you see it because they're in your dimension. Perhaps you've got to consider that you're in their dimension. So then we can stop the corrosive energy. Because if you don't catch the things that rust, especially when you live at the coast, I mean, it's bad enough in Joburg. I mean, I have to watch all the time all the things that rust around my property. Corrosive energy is extremely intense. It's eating away at stuff. It's destroying it. And that is what arguments do. It's corrosive energy. And what triggers your defensiveness? Why? What is your starting block in this situation? Where are you coming from? What has happened to your essence? What role are you undertaking? What do you want to achieve with being defensive? What have you got to defend? If you know that you're doing your best, you ensure your continuation. If you are defensive, if you are defending, you are ensuring your own continuation. In the old days, we call it survival. Well, survival is not one of my words. So I call it continuation. So, you want to ensure that your two human intrinsic needs of belonging and of an example is preserved. So what other options do you have rather than to go into defensiveness? Because if you are being defensive, you're not going to be available to run a race. You're going to be so busy checking what you have to defend, you probably won't even hear when the master says, on your marks, get set, go, you'll miss it. And you'll see, oh, there everybody's running. I haven't even jumped out of my starting blocks yet. I'm too busy defending myself of this space. Who's going to start when? Who's going to run faster than me? Waiting. My dog, she knows that word so well. I just have to say, then she understands it. It's wonderful that animals can become so clever. What other options do you have rather than to defend or to go into defensiveness? You can deflate the situation. Remember, when you look at nature, what do they do when they defend themselves? They make themselves look bigger. So if you have a big cobra, when it's sailing on the ground, it's got a tiny little head. But let it now go into defense, it rears up and its head's this big. Because it needs to make itself bigger. So in arguments, when you go into arguments, you always want to raise yourself. You want to make yourself bigger. Be bigger anyway. You don't have to only go there when you want to be in an argument. You are. Fill the space. You have a beautiful presence. Stand in that presence. Feel that presence. Exude that presence. But don't let it become inflated. Deflate. Thank you. You know what? I'm so upset about what you've just said. But you feel that deflation. Excuse me. You see, I'm even coughing when I'm just saying it. Excuse me. Let me just take a sip. You see? Look at the energy in the body. just talking about it. Deflate, this is not mine. This is not how my role works. This is not what my dimensionality is calling for. But I need to be considerate because it's not always only my dimensionality that's at stake, or that has value, or that is true and real. There's someone else who's also having an experience, and it's not going to be the same as mine. And this day will never come again. I can't compare this day with what happened yesterday. This is a new day. This day will never come again. Yesterday will never come again. So let's not connect the energies. Yes, there is a flow through everything, of course, because energy is not stop and start. But the way that we choose to relate, yesterday's ended last night at 12 o'clock. And then becomes a new day. That's how we measure here. And we also need to accept that and to align ourselves with that so that our lives can work. I called you here at 10 o'clock this morning. That's the time that we were going to start. That's the only reason we have time, is to keep our fears in place. So in other words, when we know that we've got time, we're not afraid. But if we feel that we don't have time, we are afraid. Time is a way of keeping our fears in place. And what did I say about the fear? It's the fear of loss. It's the fear of losing something that you want, that's yours. And then we argue about it, we go into power games, we become corrosive with it. You know, especially when you think you're losing the love of someone. That's what jealousy is. I'm going to lose this love and it's not going to be available to me anymore. And then comes the arguments, because the jealousy it's a power game and it's corrosive energy. And what triggers your defensiveness? Look what triggers your defensiveness. What's your starting block? What's your role? What do you want to achieve by being defensive? What other options do you have rather than to defend? Deflate. Say thank you. Say this is not mine. I give it back to you because I respect and I honor and I have absolute consideration for what happens in your dimensionality. But I'm not going to go there, because right now what I see is happening in your dimensionality is not something that I want to be part of. I give it back to you, and I respect that you need to experience it, and I'm happy for you, but I don't need to share in that. Kindness needs no circumstances. Let go and make different choices. Because watch the company that you keep. Just excuse me for 1 second. I smell my food. I just want to make sure that I didn't leave the plate on home. Give me 1 moment. And just think about that question. Make different choices, but what is the company that you keep? What dimensions do you include yourself in? What dimensions do you enter into willingly? Ah, that was just deliciousness that I was smelling. I can't wait. It looks absolutely out of this world. I love food. So let go and make different choices, because the company that you keep, the races that you choose to run, because a race is not run by yourself. You run a race with other people that's competing against you. And let me tell you something about life. It never stops. People will never stop competing with you. Sometimes your own children will compete with you. Competition is the way that this world has evolved into. Everything is a competition to prove who is better. And that's not the standard. It's not the way and the method by which Mother Nature gauges things. The one who ran the fastest stay alive. It's not about winning. It's about living another day. So let go. Make different choices, because you can. You can choose to say, This is not a dimension I want to be part of. Thank you. It's not serving me. It doesn't make me feel better about myself or my life, because we now in this year 2024, we have the year of opportunity, and therefore we must be willing to thrive on change. Thrive on change. You see those inevitable emotions that accompany you through those unwelcome incidents, and you welcome and you flourish with the transitions that you willingly manifest. But most of them are not starting blocks. Your foundation is not something that you would ever choose for yourself. If you think about it consciously, but because these are thoughts that are happening to you and you actually live them, you're not thinking them. You need to now thrive on the changes, not see them as bothersome and if I have to tell you the amount of challenges that I face in a day, just because of the life that I choose to live, my IT, my daily, the things that people just daily do and take for granted, doesn't work like that in my dimension. Everything comes to me with great difficulty, and it's not something that I cancel that thought for sure, because my life is effortless, but the actual way in which my dimension functions feels that way to me. So now I'm giving myself permission to thrive on change, and I see those inevitable emotions that accompanies me through these unwelcome incidents, because they're unwelcome. And yet I welcome and flourish with them, because they transition me into things, into greatness, into realizations, into insights about myself, because I am the eternal student. I want to continue learning at every opportunity. And that will allow me to take more risks, because I realize that I've stopped taking risks. Yes, perhaps it's because I'm pushing 70. I don't want to take the risks that I took when I was 19. For sure not. Thankfully not. So, when we have a hampering of our visualization, of our ability to visualize, due to the confusion that is presented to us by chaos, because chaos always presents us with confusion. And when we feel that something is chaotic or in chaos, it presents us with confusion. And that hampers our ability to see our life beautifully. That robs us of the glasses. When I see my life with the eyes of beauty, my life becomes a beautiful experience. And when I take off the glasses of the filters of beauty from my way, my vision for my life, because you can even call that your starting block. Your starting block can be beauty. And the whole race will then be beautiful, because when I see my life with the eyes of beauty, my life is a beautiful experience. But the hampering of this visualization, due to the confusion that is presented by chaos, that's where you need to take risks, because you need to actually risk. I'm challenged. I'm so challenged just to present, just to keep an agreement that I've made. Every single thing will fall. And I just eventually have to accept, that the situation has jinxed. There's nothing I can do about it. Now I can either have sustained determination, or I can be honest and say, this is what's happening. I have done everything I can and it still happens. So now, what kind of starting block can I use in this situation? I need to surrender, because it's not going to assist me to go into defensiveness and to fight. Because the more I'm going to fight what I'm dealing with, the more it's going to rear up and make itself bigger, because that's the response. In a situation where there's an argument and there needs to be defending, or a defensive energy is required or enters the dimension, there's that rearing up. You know you can repair and overcome. You know you can repair and overcome. But any hurt or disappointment, but you first need to go back to where, how did you start? Where did you come? Where did you enter into this dimension? You know, in Toltec wisdom, they call it the assemblage point. Where does the consciousness enter the space? You know, and you can move that assemblage point wherever you want in order to enter into a different dimension. But you know you can repair and overcome. And you know that there are many mistakes made. Things that a mistake is just something that you could have done differently, but you didn't think about it. You didn't have the consciousness to make it like that. But in retrospect, you can find many, many different options in the way that you could have made, a choice, or it could have been, if I did it this way, it would have been that much easier. I experienced that when I travel on the road because I refused to use a GPS. I travel by my own ability to choose where I'm going and to look and to see, even when there's no more street names these days on the corners like there used to be. But making a mistake is not a dead end, but it's a new beginning. You can repair and you can overcome your own hurt and disappointment. But never ever does it mean that you need to compromise yourself and your innate essence, your deepest vulnerability, which is your self-respect, which is the thing that's sacred to you. Your ability to apply your capacity more efficiently, more effectively. Because you also need to be efficient at times, but effective is really the essence. But to apply your capacity effectively will improve and become much better because you have better concentration, you have more memory. When you know, you don't have to believe, you don't have to worry, you don't have to speculate, you don't have to have a hypothesis. You know, because it's your dimension. If your dimension, how can you not know what's going on there? You know, you don't believe, you know. Then you have better concentration. You have an efficient memory, a memory that's effective, not the mind that works by association and that goes and pulls up all kinds of fucking outdated illusions by which you then govern your life, because it's not even based on any reality. And then there's much less to worry and obsess about. And you switch more easily between your left and right brain, because the left brain is equally important, but the left brain is your logic. And very often the logic is this mind by association thing, because it's logical that it should be like that, but it's totally an illusion. And it's totally out of the ballpark. It's out of the game. You don't even know where the ball is. It's somewhere out there, like in the cosmos. You have to find a new ball. You've hit it right out the park. So less to worry and obsess about, and switch easily between the logical brain and your right intuitive feeling brain, the truth. Because your right brain is really your intuitive brain. And then you sustain your own motivation. What is motivation? Your motion. Trust your truth. You be kinder to yourself. Be good. Remember that you're having a human experience. Fuck, you can't expect yourself to know everything and to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes, of course. It's what this journey is all about. But when you start using things to hide behind, in order to not show authentically what you're busy with, when you start having hidden agendas, also with yourself, there's a lot of people in my life that they're not even aware of their own hidden agendas. I just watch them with great interest, because that's something I've prayed for right at the start of my journey. And that's all I asked God for, to do this work. I said, God, let me always have the ability to see the truth. Not what your truth or his truth or her truth, or, just the truth. And that's why I'm blessed to be able to say that I see the truth, because I asked for it. right at the beginning. I didn't ask for money or wealth. I didn't ask for wisdom. I just wanted to see the truth, because the truth sets me free every day of my life. And the truth liberates you. It's the only thing that can give you freedom on this earth. Not politics, but the truth. And unfortunately, we don't trust the truth because we don't trust ourselves. Because when we start the race, we already believe that we're not going to manage. We're not going to be able to run this race. It's going to be too much for us. And then you prevent and discard and refuse your greatness. And negative and unwanted feelings intrudes on your progress all the time. And then you will continuously encounter setbacks, curveballs, things that come across your path that really you can see it's ridiculously unnecessary. But those are the things that you created with your energy yesterday. Because yesterday will never come again. You can't go back there and say, okay, then let me shift. Perhaps we can, but not in the way that we relate to consciousness. No. So you can be more persuasive in asking for what you want. That's why I said we must now ascend, we must progress from a permission to a declaration. You no longer give permission in your life, you declare it, because that's how it's going to be. You are more persuasive in asking for what you want, and you deal with what is, because you can't ask for what you want if you can't deal with what is. How are you going to know that you get it if you're not living with what is? Admit and accept. Admit and accept. And it's what is. It's not how you want it to be, it's what you see. You've got to be brave enough, you've got to risk to look at what you see. And you know what your filter is, because your filter is your starting block. What is your filter? What do you see? You know how you give extra power to your own message in life. You know that. And you know how to engage your audience. If your audience is just your partner, your husband, your sister, your brother, your son, your daughter, you have an audience. Because that's why we have an intrinsic need to feel like an example. We always have an audience. You always have a witness, even if you're alone. So now you know how to give extra power to your message and how to hook your audience. You want to engage them. You want to get, that's what social media is all about. It's about having that audience. But now do it as a microcosm. You don't have to go and have 150,000 followers on a social media account. I promise you, it's not all moonshine and roses. Give extra power to your message every day. And thank you so much for coming to sit with me this morning. I really appreciate that you've taken a few moments to come and share. It's much longer than I want. I wanted to do just 15 minutes, and I see it's almost an hour. Oh my God, I talk so much. So in closing, thanks, Tadeka. It's always lovely to be appreciated. It's the resolving of the conflict. There's no need to look for issues to clear the air. We sometimes go and look for issues to clear the air. No, you don't have to resolve conflict like that. You know you are being heard. You share yourself with passion. You are honest. You've made peace with your integrity. You've made peace with your intensity. I've made peace with my intensity. There's not a lot of people that want to listen to me. I know that. Because firstly, when I listen to myself and how I speak in these sessions, I'm going, oh my God, do you just have this one high pitch? It sounds horrible, but I really cannot speak in any other way authentically, so you'll have to put up with me. So resolving conflict we never need to go and look for the issues. Because then you're asking the puff adder, the poisonous snake, why are you here? What did you come here for? You just need to know the starting blocks that you used this morning. That's how far back you need to go. Because that will give you all the answers. You don't need to go look for the issues to clear the air. You know you are being heard. That's what's important. Know that you are being heard, because when you are being heard, you can see the shift in the dimension. And there's also shared dimensions. You can see the shift in the shared dimension. That's what I say to people. When you come sit with me for a session, your life is affected in a positive and beautiful, in a growing fashion immediately. It's not after 10 sessions, it's now. When you walk out, you walk away with value. You know you are being heard. Even if I interrupt you because I don't want your mind to follow that rabbit, down that rabbit hole. It's not going to serve you to go there. So that's why I interrupt you. Stop, don't go there. And I know that it's not always appreciated, but that's the reason why I do it, because I'm stopping you from going down that rabbit hole. It's not necessary. I want you to see the illusion that you're actually engaging with when you do that. So resolving conflict, there's no need to look for issues to clear the air. There's no need to look for issues for you to grow. But we need to have awareness about the idiosyncrasies of being human. And we need to have awareness about how it works on this planet and how everything fits together, because it has a law of creation. So you can share yourself with passion. You can make peace with your intensity, and you can have wonderful respect for your integrity. That's greatness. So go and have a wonderful life. And thank you. It's just 11 o'clock and I'm saying goodbye to all of you. It was wonderful to share this space with you. Thank you so much for sitting here with me. And may you have a blessed life. May your life be blessed by sharing this morning with me too. Bye.